Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chip Schwarze, CEO of the Greater Idaho Falls Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to be your host today for the Idaho Falls Online Luncheon. This online luncheon is put together with the Greater Idaho Falls Chamber of Commerce, the City Club, the Rotary Club, and the Civitan Club. We've all got together because it's so important that we come together as a community to help each other out through this. As the Chamber of Commerce, our focus on life is businesses. And at this time in life, businesses are having a hard time. Some of them have closed their doors. Some of them are this close to closing their doors. And I want to encourage you all to do everything you can to support our local businesses. They're trying so hard and they're working so hard. And this is a difficult situation for them that they really have no control over. Things we can do. Businesses are set up to do takeout. Or you can phone an order in and they'll pick it up. I went to Home Depot the other day and I didn't have to carry my 4x4 post out. They brought it out and gave it to me. Businesses are offering gift cards. You can call in, you can have anything you want put together just about at the grocery store, at the hardware store. I understand you can't try on clothes at the clothing stores, but you can still buy them. So do everything you can. Try and keep life as normal as possible because these businesses that you're supporting are Idaho families that you're supporting. It's so great to be a part of the business community here in Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls has so many good people here, and it's my privilege today to introduce you to some of the leadership from the city of Idaho Falls, as they're going to talk to you about what the city's doing to keep us safe and to help us keep on with our lives. We've got quite a few people from the city organizations. I'm going to let Mayor Casper introduce you to them. But it is my pleasure to introduce you today, Mayor Rebecca Casper, as she's going to come forward and share what the city's doing with us and share us how we can move forward going from here. Mayor Casper, thank you for all you and your team have been doing for us. I know you probably haven't got more than 4 hours of sleep in a month. So thank you for what you're doing, and tell your team thank you for us.
Thank you very much, Chip. I appreciate that warm introduction and acknowledgement of all the work that's happening here. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. But first, I want to say thank you to IE Productions for creating the Lunch-In. I think it's a wonderful format. It's a very creative idea, and it's a great way to bring some of my favorite groups together. We've got Rotary, Civitan, City Club, and the Idaho Falls Chamber, all coming together to not only educate ourselves, but I think in the process, one of the side benefits, maybe one that we didn't think about, but it's certainly creating some unity, and I think that that's a very positive thing. So the format today is simply a Q&A, but it's not a live Q&A. We're actually pre-taping this, and so it is not for us Wednesday at noon, but this will roll Wednesday at noon, and we'll have people watching the live feed tomorrow, and if you have questions, you can still submit them then, and we'll try to get those answered using the Facebook live feed. But for right now, the questions, we've gathered up quite a few questions. Many of them are the frequently asked questions we get at City Hall, and it doesn't surprise you to know that I can't answer all those questions myself. And so I brought a couple of folks from city leadership here to help answer some of those. And so let me get started. The first question is, tell us a little bit about what is the state of the city right now. And so what I can tell you is that the pandemic has had some pretty significant effects on Idaho Falls as a city. We normally have just under 700 full-time employees, and roughly half of them have been sidelined. They've been sent home, and they're waiting until orders change before they can come back. Some of them are working from home, but many are just sidelined. Of the other half, roughly half of our employees, they are working because they are in what the governor's order identifies as essential services. They are helping to provide essential services, and that would be power, water, fiber optics, sewer, sanitation. We don't call it sewer, sorry. We call it wastewater. But the air service, fire protection, EMS, policing, all of those things are essential. Society doesn't do very well without those kinds of services. And so we do have a lot of people who are still working. They're either working from home or they're working behind closed doors or behind gates or in their vehicles. And so you'll see a lot of city workers out. Another question with the uncertainty of COVID-19, what is taking place to help position Idaho Falls and its citizens? Well, I'm not quite sure what position means, but I will tell you that we are, first of all, we are all taking care to educate ourselves and remain informed so that we can have as much unity as possible when we're making decisions. It never feels good when, the leader of the group has one idea and everybody else in the group has 15 other ideas. We want to make sure that we're well informed so that the right path is fairly obvious. We are having a COVID-19 update at the beginning of every city council meeting, and we've had quite a few city council meetings in this in the last 3 weeks. We've also called 2 extra meetings, and so I feel as though the council members are highly informed. As far as our directors, we're meeting with city directors at least once a week or more as needed. We certainly make good use of email, telephone calls, and other, conference type forums. I will tell you that the budget impacts are very significant for the city. We anticipate losing about $2 million in revenue, and that's something that we simply can't make up for, that kind of revenue loss in the last 6 months of a fiscal year. And so we're going to have some serious cuts ahead of us. Fortunately, the people who work for the city, as my dad would have said, they have their heads on straight. And what he means by that is that, that was his way of saying that they have really good priorities. And I believe that when whatever is going to get cut is not going to be fun, not for anybody, not for the person whose job that might have been, not for the person who might have enjoyed that service, but it will make sense given the global nature of the threat before us. And that's just it. This is a time for priorities. We might, bemoan the fact that we can't get into the aquatic center, but in the overall scheme of things, that's a small price to pay for the long-term health of our community. And so, again, everybody has their heads on straight, and we're trying to make smart decisions that way. The next question is one that I've gotten quite a bit, and I can only imagine if a lowly mayor has gotten this question so many times. I can only imagine what Governor Brad Little, what his life has been like for the past, week. But here's the question: when is the governor's order going to be lifted? Is it going to be extended? And I know he's been asked that multiple times because I've asked him that already in the past week. In short, because we're pre-taping this Q&A right now, we don't know. We're actually, the governor's message will have been at 11, and you're watching this at noon. So we don't have the definitive answer as we're talking today. But I'm willing to hazard a guess. Let me just preface my guess with a few thoughts here. Despite the fact that the governor is under intense political pressure on at least 3 main fronts. One would be ideologues who dislike the governor's broad use of government power. So we've got folks in that category who are pressuring him. Then we've got independent rural Idaho communities that have not been hard hit by the virus, but they're certainly hard hit by the economic impacts. They're pressuring the governor. And then we've got public health and medical professionals who, having seen the impacts of the virus firsthand, also are pressuring the governor. And everybody's pressuring him with a slightly different message. The governor's gotten a fair amount of support for extending his order from the larger Idaho cities. And that's because those are the places where we're seeing more of the impact from the virus. That's what logic tells me. I believe Bonneville County weighed in with a thumbs up for an extension. I spoke with several mayors last week in eastern Idaho, and a slight majority of them were in favor of an extension. And of course, the city council members in Idaho Falls were unanimously in favor of an extension. So my expectation is that the governor will extend the statewide order through the end of the month. This may, in fact, be a compromise position for him if he does that. Recall that most of the major coronavirus pandemic models that are out there, and there was a lot of word or talk about models last week in particular, but even the most optimistic models were based on the assumption that we were going to continue social distancing and stay-home orders until the end of May. And so here we are in Idaho, where, by the way, we are congratulating ourselves for having done a pretty good job. In Idaho Falls, I've been very impressed with the level of compliance. I know that on sunny days and days when folks are out on the weekends getting a lot of errands run, essential errands run, it looks as though nobody's following the rules. But I do think that we do have a lot of compliance here, and we can say that the very fact that the hospitals here have not been overrun is evidence that we are doing a good job of flattening that curve and minimizing the demand for those services. And so congratulations, everybody, for doing a good job. That's the good news. The harder news is that we've got to keep it up. We've got to keep it up for at least probably the end of the month if the governor comes in the way I'm predicting, but also through the end of May or through the end of the year. We have to be pretty serious about where we want to be as a community. And I think where we want to be is on the side of health. So just think about that and let that sink in a little bit. I do think it's possible that we might see the state order, the revised order, whatever. He joked about it earlier today, calling it a maybe his order 2.0, whatever the order is that we'll hear at 11. It's possible that we might see the state embrace some loosening for outdoor trades and professions and activities that can be done outdoors, like construction or landscaping. But in truth, many outdoor activities can be done responsibly, and so we may not even need the governor to give us that permission. If you have loved ones in those professions, however, please encourage them to continue to act carefully and responsibly, to wear masks and practice social distancing for a while longer. So another question, and Chip sort of alluded to some of the pain that our local small businesses are experiencing. When are we going to be able to open businesses again? Well, we're going to have to listen carefully to the governor's words to learn when everybody can open everywhere. But when we do get that go-ahead, we're going to have to venture back into the workplace carefully. I have not yet formulated plans or written guidelines for and recommendations for the city itself, but that's exactly what we're going to be working on over the next week or so. I will tell you that we want this to be as successful as possible. Social distancing really should remain the norm around here for a long while. Let me just step back for a minute and be a little bit philosophical. What we're trying to do is buy time. Right? We've talked about flattening the curve. We've talked about, sanitizing our hands and not getting sick. But what we're really trying to do is buy time. We have a new threat to the world, right? A new threat to our bodies that what we really want to do is have enough time to go by for us to be able to have immunity. Well, how do we have immunity? Well, we either get it from a vaccine or we get it from that phrase you've heard a lot lately, which is herd immunity. Well, how do we get to herd immunity or to a vaccine, which we know is about a year out, at least? The way we do it is we buy time and we give ourselves enough time to get the PPE. We give ourselves enough time, which is the personal protective equipment, right? The masks and the things that we need to be able to have first responders and doctors and medical professionals do what they need to do to help us in our time of sickness and need. But we also need to buy time to get enough testing out there for everybody so that we can get the data that we need to be able to shape the models that can help us direct that PPE. We need to buy time to get the hospitals fully equipped, get those what are they called? Ventilators, sorry. Big mistake there, but get ventilators to everybody, or to figure out how to get the jack that turns two ventilators into, one ventilator into two ventilators. We need to buy time for those things. We need to buy time for the tests that, until we can get the tests that determine whether or not we have antibodies or we're immune. We need to buy time to be able to get the surge capacity in hospitals to be sufficient so that we can have those tent hospitals or those hotels converted into hospitals in areas where that's needed. We are trying to buy time to be able to really do what we need to do to have this not be a threat to us anymore. And that takes time. And so by staying home, we're buying time. And by doing all the things we can do to prevent mass illness on a large scale, the sanitizing, the mask wearing, all of that helps to buy time. Each and every day is important. So if you think about it that way, maybe you won't be so worried about when this deadline ends or when that one comes or whatever. We'll be less deadline driven and more goal oriented. And the goal is to get us to the vaccine. It's to get us to the herd immunity. And so think about it that way. This is something that we all have a stake in, and we all have a responsibility for getting there. All right, another question. What do you think it'll look like once we can reopen, and will we ever be able to go back to the way we were before? As a community, I'm going to say that we have all made what amounts to a very dear and very costly investment in each other's lives. Right? We've shut down as of today. Today's day 21. We've shut down, or maybe today's 20, whatever it is, and the shutdown has created such economic worry and concern. We don't want that to be for naught because, boom, we all decide, hey, an order is expired, we're all going to go back to work. We want to be able to make this as something that was worth doing. And the only way to do that is to move back, as we've already talked about, move back into real life slowly again. And so some people are saying, we're going to have a new normal. Other people say, I hate the phrase new normal. I want the old normal. And so, whatever we end up with, it's going to be probably different. I'm not sure what to call it, but we'll probably be a changed society with renewed respect for our global connectivity and also for the value of personal distance. I expect those without adequate internet connectivity will demand better for themselves when this is all over. Their neighborhoods and their communities will need to be better connected. As we speak, cash is being dealt yet another blow because it's dirty and it's not touchless. And credit cards, you get out and you just wave them in the air, right? And you've got your cash flow or your money flow going. And so interesting changes that might come about. I, for one, am a people person. I prefer a face-to-face conversation any day. I read body language. I thrive on that, eye contact. And so the online meetings have been harder for me. But we're seeing how possible it is to have a decent long-distance conversation without travel. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the small trips for brief meetings were to be revised. Me not going to Boise as many times in a year as I do might save the city enough money to be able to afford all the devices we suddenly are going to need. And so we may see a reshaping of how business gets done, and I think that's interesting. New efficiencies are being discovered that might translate into money savings in the future, if not just for the city. If not, certainly at the city level, but probably for businesses everywhere. One more question I want to try to tackle before I turn some time over to some other experts here, but would be the question of, I've been laid off or furloughed. How do I pay my rent? I don't really have this answer. This is a tough one. This question, when it comes in to City Hall, it kind of breaks my heart. It breaks my assistant's heart. And we've been trying to figure out and Google, what the answer is to this one. There really isn't a definitive answer that we can find because every single landlord-tenant situation is unique. But we're all in this together, right? We say that. That's all over the billboards. So we've been telling folks this is not a time to be shy, and it's not a time to be ashamed. So pick up the phone if you are a tenant and you can't pay your rent, and you have a conversation with your landlord. I would hope that 9 times out of 10, you're going to have an understanding dialogue and maybe be able to work something out. For that 1 time out of 10, I don't know what to tell you. I just don't. That worries me. For the landlords out there, if you own or manage your properties with an LLC, my understanding is that you will qualify for those small business administration loans. So if you haven't applied, get in line and apply. And hopefully that will help you to be able to buy some time for your tenants. If you have loved ones or friends who are struggling with this right now, sorry, I don't know why it's so emotional, but I would encourage you to open up a couch and grab a blanket and a pillow and help some people out. So when it comes to paying other bills, I don't manage that part of the city, and so I've invited Pam Alexander. She's here, and she'll be able to answer a few questions for us. She's the director of the city's Department of Municipal Services, and she has a few insights for how the city is operating when it comes to bill paying and some other things that your department handles. So I'm going to turn the time over to Pam now. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good afternoon. So as the mayor mentioned, I oversee the Municipal Services Department, and we received 4 questions that I'm going to go over. Our first question is, how do I pay my bills, and where can I go to do that? Well, we have a variety of options and more options than we ever have before. And earlier this fall, we actually purchased 2 kiosks, and these kiosks allow you to make your payments in person, either cash, check, or credit card. We have one kiosk that's 24/7 that's located on the west end of City Hall, and we have another kiosk located over at Idaho Falls Power. The kiosk over at Idaho Falls Power is open during the regular business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but as I mentioned earlier, the City Hall kiosk is available 24/7. And we're actually seeing a pretty big increase in that use of the kiosk at City Hall. We also still have the utility bill payment box that's in the west end parking lot of City Hall. I continue to see people use that as well. We ask that people do not put cash in that box, but they can use checks, and they can also put a money order in there if they need to. We check that box several times a day. Another option we have for those that have the ability to go online, we actually have online payment. So you can go through our website and make a payment online if you choose to. We also can make payments by phone, and the number for that is 844-235-2019. And then finally, there's a really unique opportunity to save $1, a credit of your bill every month by signing up for paperless billing, and we call it the drafting, what we call it ACH. So in other words, your bank actually makes that payment for you. And that's a seamless process for people to be able to use that method to pay their bills. And so these are just for our utility bills. The other question that we received is the city going to shut off my utilities? Well, similar to other public utility companies, the City of Idaho Falls is being flexible with residents impacted by the effects of the COVID-19 public health crisis. We are available to talk to any resident that is struggling with paying their utility bills. You can call us at 612-8280 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also email us at utilities@idahofallsidaho.gov. That's probably the best way to approach us for needing assistance. We also have relationships with community organizations that we can refer people to as well for some community support. My third question I received is, how is the shutdown financially impacting the city? Well, as the mayor mentioned earlier, we're anticipating to see a decrease in revenue. And what that means is our charges for service and our fees for service. As many of you know, a lot of our parks programs and a lot of those services have had to be discontinued for a period of time. And so what that means is that we're not expecting to receive the revenue or the charges and the fees that we were expecting to. And so what we're looking at doing is we're reassessing every month that we can and develop a forecast plan. But as the mayor mentioned earlier, it's not going to come without some kind of reduction. And so unfortunately, we're looking at that. We keep, we keep our forecast models going, everything that we can do to reduce the impact of our services. We're going to try to do the best we can with that. And then finally, my fourth question where's my fourth question? Where do I go if I want to pay my city license renewal? Back on March 26th, the city actually passed a resolution that extended certain city licenses renewals until May 31st. And that resolution also has an option to be extended if needed. And so that would be, so everybody that has a license is good until May 31st. So with that, and because outdoor activities and exercise are really important, we also invited PJ Holm, our Parks and Recreation Director, to tackle a few commonly asked questions. PJ.
Thank you, Director Alexander. I'm excited to be here today. I appreciate all that you guys do in your service clubs throughout our community. You guys definitely make our community a much better place to live in and to be part of. So thank you guys for everything, and gals for everything that you guys do in Idaho Falls. I have the ability to lead a department that has a lot of fun aspects and great aspects to our community and things that get to add a lot of common good, I guess, to Idaho Falls. And so I'm excited to talk about some of those things. And we also had some questions that were submitted that I'd like to talk about with all of you guys and give you some updates. So the first one that came into us was why are golf courses open? And that's something that we really looked at. We took a good hard look at to see if it was something that we could do and if it was the right thing to do for our community. in the time that they've been open, I believe that we've made the right choice. I believe that we are having strict protocols on our golf courses that are allowing us to have the opportunity to put golfers out onto our golf courses safely and keep some kind of normalcy in our community right now. This is a time full of unknowns and a time full of scary opportunities, scary possibilities, I guess, in your futures. But this is a great opportunity for us and for the community to be able to have that normalcy and be able to have that great value of getting out and recreating outside. Our driving range is open was another question that came in about the golf courses. We are not opening our driving ranges at this point, mainly because we are struggling to find a way that we can safely and guarantee that there will be no cross-contamination or cross-touches on those range balls as we are picking those up. And so we made that conscious decision that it was better to be safe than sorry when it came to this opportunity. And so we're holding off for the time being on opening up our driving ranges. Our putting greens are all open. And again, our 3 golf courses and our short course are all open with modified protocols. So some of the protocols that you'll see out on the golf courses, in case you're not a golfer, or in case you're a golfer and haven't had a chance yet to get out to the golf courses, one of the things that we're doing is we've raised all of our cups up about an inch on our greens. And so what that does for us is gives us the ability to where instead of having to go and grab the flag stick and pull the flag stick out of that hole, hit your ball in, and everybody touching the same balls, what we did was raise that cup up that inch so that when your ball hits that, essentially that is counted as a hole when you're golfing. And so that eliminates any touch points. We've also eliminated our ball washing stations, our bunker rakes, and have really significantly limited the use of our clubhouses and cafes to really try to limit the amount of exposure we're exposing folks to in the community. All right, on to our zoo. Is the zoo going to open? That is something that is the $1 million question right now, and we are planning on opening on May 1st as of right now. Tomorrow, and I guess as you guys are watching this within the last hour or so, we will have a little bit more direction from our governor on what the next few weeks look like. But really, at this point, we are hoping for some way to open our zoo. With that, what we're looking at is again some protocols. How do we keep folks from touching the glass that surround the animals? How do we keep folks from touching railings that surround the animals? And so it's a conversation that we're still having, and it's something that we're still looking at. How do we best and the most safest way, I guess, to get folks from our community to be able to visit our zoo? And those are things that we're looking at, I guess, right now. Is our war bonnet going to happen this year? That's another question that we received. Again, if I had another $1 million question, I guess that's it at this point. Right now, we are very optimistic that we are going to be able to host the 109th annual War Bonnet this year. It's again going to tell what the next month looks like, is really going to decide what that looks like for us in Parks and Recreation. I've set a date for May 15th to make a final decision on or before May 15th. We will decide one way or another if we are going to have the War Bonnet. Not only is it the health of our community and the proximity that folks will be in as they're attending the event, but we also want to make sure that our sponsors feel comfortable being part of this event and becoming partners or staying partners with the city as we go on with this event. And so we are making sure that we want to work with our sponsors to make sure that they feel comfortable sponsoring an event that hopefully the city feels comfortable about running this year. Another question that we got: when do we reopen our skate park and playgrounds? That is up in the air as of right now. We actually, during the stay home order, the Parks and Recreation Department attempted to keep our skate parks open, as well as our playgrounds with extensive cleaning regimens, I guess, happening on a daily basis. It's something that we just didn't feel comfortable letting our youth play around, and as far as the playgrounds go, I guess that's how that one we looked at was there was no way to guarantee that we could keep those playgrounds clean all parts of the day, all days of the week. And so we feel at this point that it was better to close those down. We will reopen those, but it is going to be a process of kind of learning as we go and adapting. As far as the skate park, we tried to leave that open. We were having some issues with folks following the guidelines for social distancing there, and so we've decided to close it down, and we will reopen that again as quickly as we possibly can. We understand that kids are at home. We understand that folks are looking for activities to do, and that is an activity that a lot of our youth do, and we want to make sure that we're here for them, but we want to make sure that we're not putting them in any kind of harm's way more than just their sport alone puts them in. So we're hoping to be able to get that skate park open ASAP as well. How about baseball and softball? Are we going to have any seasons this year? So right now, our recreation department is very optimistic for what that looks like. But again, we've got to understand that just because maybe an order is lifted or our social distancing is maybe lightened up, that people aren't going to feel 100% safe getting next to each other, playing next to each other, watching their kids play from a stand where they're sitting next to folks that they don't know. And so we are taking that into our decision process of what the comfort level of the community is going to be. We obviously we would love to be able to offer our programs. We would love to have sports running throughout this time of year. We understand that kids right now are desperate for things to do, but we want to make sure that we're not putting anybody in any kind of harm's way that we don't have to. And so, again, like I said, we're very optimistic. We will get our sports and programs up and running as quickly as we possibly can. If you aren't already a subscriber of our Discover Idaho Falls newsletter, this is a great newsletter for you to be able to receive weekly updates on parks and recreation happenings in the community for date changes, time changes, cancellations, that kind of thing. And so if you are not a subscriber already, if you go to our website, ifrec.org, there's a big poster right on the front page, and you can click on that, and it will send you right to the sign-up link to receive those weekly emails. Great way to stay informed. The dog park. So one of the questions that we have received is the dog park open? And are there any special rules? Our dog park is open at this point. If you haven't been out there since last year or the year before, get out and check it out. We have we got an amazing grant last year for some renovations of our dog park, and we've put in all sorts of new amenities out there. We're still working on those. We'll be finishing those up this spring. There'll be some shelters for folks to be able to get out of the sun. There'll be some water for the animals to be able to drink and for humans to be able to drink as well. We've added a third bay. We've added some agility course pieces for the dogs to be able to play around on a little bit more and give a little bit more activity. So I'd encourage you to get out there and check out our dog park. Come and see what we got for you. I guess I also wanted to talk about one other thing that we are looking to adapt this year is our Movies in the Park program. I know that right now folks aren't being able to go to movies and go to movie theaters. So we're trying to adapt. How are we going to run our Movies in the Park program? We've got a couple feelers out in the community, but we are looking at trying to run some kind of drive-in movie or some kind of a movie opportunity that we can offer that will give that ability to have social distancing and still be part of a program that is a great program for our families in our community and that our department specifically loves so much to be part of. So that is all the questions that I had submitted for Parks and Recreation. And I have nothing else to talk about other than I would like to reintroduce Mayor Casper back up to the podium to finish this up.
Thanks. Hey, PJ, did you talk about lawn mowing?
No, I did not.
Let's talk just for a minute about dandelions.
You got it. One thing that I did forget to talk about was our maintenance. So through the budget cuts that we've had because of the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the large things that Parks and Recreation is doing to cut our budget is lessening our seasonal employees and our workforce that we have. It is going to be a really, really tough year for Parks and Recreation and for possibly our community. You guys might see more dandelions out. You might see some grass that's a little bit longer than you'd prefer to see. I promise that we are not doing this on purpose, that we are getting to things as fast as we can. We will continue to maintain everything we possibly can, but we are going to ask for a little bit of understanding as we roll through this year that our forces are going to be stretched and our manpower is going to be stretched very thin throughout the season. So if you see a problem in the community, please reach out to us and let us know that you see it, rather than writing an editorial to the paper or having some sending an email to the mayor or something. I guess why don't you reach out to our department and let us know, and we will get on it just as fast as we possibly can. So appreciate everything you guys do again in our community. Let us know how we're doing. We're gonna have a wonderful summer with Parks and Recreation and inside the city of Idaho Falls. Okay, that's all I have from Parks and Recreation today. So I'd finish mine by introducing our Mayor Rebecca Casper.
Thank you, PJ. More for me here, some more questions. This one has to do with enforcement. And the question is, why doesn't the city shut down businesses that are still open? And I will tell you that the current order allows law enforcement to issue a citation that has the force of a misdemeanor. But as I've said before to others, it's not our goal to punish people through this pandemic. We much prefer to achieve compliance through education. And so when officers encounter a group or someone who's not in compliance, chances are they're going to practice something called educate and disperse. They're going to go up to those individuals and they're going to, hey, did you know that there's an order out for people to stay home? And take it from there. And that 9 times out of 10, we get some pretty good compliance there. If we see that that's not going to work, then there's always the option of a warning. And a warning is, a little more sternly worded perhaps. And then after that, we could write tickets. But I don't think we've done that much, if at all, at this point. And that's because we go back to that thing that I was praising everybody before. We're having a fairly high degree of compliance. People don't want to be out there making each other sick. I did read about the practice that some police are using in India, or at least one police officer. They went to an area and found some people who were out in violation of a much stricter order than we have, and they required these folks, and I think some of them were tourists, but they required them to write 500 times, "I did not follow the rules of lockdown. I am very sorry." I can just imagine having to write that 500 times, but our police officers are not doing that, but that one made me laugh. All right, another question. Why are businesses like Lowe's and Home Depot still open? And I will tell you that the governor's 2-page order came with pages and pages and pages of implementation instructions. And included was a long list of businesses that are deemed essential. And that included stores, hardware stores, food stores, things that sell essential items were considered to be essential. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of commerce still happening. It's not because, the folks at Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart are greedy. It's because they need to be open to serve needs. Another question, and this is a really popular one for my office in particular, and that is, how do I report people or businesses that are not social distancing? And so what I'll say to you, and I don't know if IE Productions can flash this on the screen, but the number is 1-888-330-3010. That's the governor's office's hotline that they've set up to receive reports, and they'll also answer questions. So if you get through on the hotline, and from what I understood early on, it was hard to get through. But when you get through, the folks there will have more information, or they'll listen to what your concerns are. I do believe that it's also helpful for them to be able to see the patterns that are emerging, the kinds of calls that they're getting. It helps them to be able to inform, additional refinements of the order. So once again, the Idaho COVID-19 hotline is 1-888-330-3010. Another tool, and it's one I would recommend using very sparingly, would be to use social media to identify a situation. Now, we all know or have seen instances where if you identify something that's less than perfect on social media, it can blow up and people can, develop a very hot conversation very quickly. But if there is a particular problem, that you're very, very concerned about, you can certainly initiate that dialogue. And sometimes things are pretty self-correcting once they get, flushed out on social media. So use that carefully. Use that carefully. Another question is, are there any insights on the future of the Idaho Falls economy? And I'll tell you that issues about the economy are extremely sensitive for me. I care a great deal about how well things are going for local businesses. And so I'm really glad that somebody asked that. I will say that despite the current effects of the pandemic, Idaho Falls has a very strong and a very bright economic future on the horizon. Even with COVID-19, which is very painful and hopefully a rather brief moment for us, looking out, we are also seeing a recession. This is kick-started or jump-started or whatever the word we want to use, a recession. And that, they tell us, we'll have a pretty quick recovery from too if we can keep our heads on straight, right? And so I will tell you that what makes us unique here in Eastern Idaho? Well, we have had, and I think once COVID-19 social distancing goes away, we will continue to have a construction boom underway. Much of it is construction that's coming in support of the nuclear industry that we embrace here in Eastern Idaho. So we look forward to finishing the expansion of the capacity at the Naval Reactors Facility. That's a great facility, by the way. It makes me so excited every time I think about what the role is that Idaho plays to power nuclear submarines and nuclear naval aircraft carriers. That work that we do out there fills me with so much pride. And they have expanded their capacity, and that construction is somewhat delayed for this season, but once they get underway, that's going to continue. We've also got the small modular reactor that's coming, and we need to do a whole show on that one. We've got micro reactors, another development that's going to create more growth. We have advanced testing capacity and other things. Amy Lentz talked about this at Rotary a couple months ago, but there's so much going on that will not stop just because we have having a recession going on for parts of the economy. And so all of these are significant projects that will dot our landscape and create the need for additional support services as new jobs come online. So I do think that our future is bright. I will tell you that COVID-19 may have slowed us down a bit, but it's pretty much just bought us a little more time to try to figure out how to educate, house, transport, and connect this new workforce that's coming our way. So I will just take a brief moment and brag for a minute about CEI. And many of you know President Rick Amon. He's good about being an active member of our community. But he has presided over the CEI coming online. And as he has done that, and I don't mean a pun, but to use a pun there about him coming online, but as it's come to our community and developed into a proper community college campus, he has taken great care to make sure that he hired people who had that online teaching talent and training. And I will tell you that President Amon, his VP of Academic Affairs, and their Director of Online Learning all have expertise in online education and training. And they were all specializing in this back before it was cool. And so this makes CEI really nimble and really poised to be a leader in our state when it comes to the delivery of online education. They don't have a lot of overhead when it comes to brick and mortar to take care of. They've got a lean campus and this ability to take education across the state, to take it to rural parts of Idaho. And that is the reason I'm mentioning this at all. It's because this is an incredibly powerful tool in any recession, is the ability to retrain folks, the ability to help them to be prepared for whatever opportunities are coming. And so we've got that resource in our community, and I'm quite certain that CEI is going to be setting the standard for the rest of the state on this because they're so well prepared when it comes to the delivery of online education. I want to, wrap up, and you've heard enough from me today, but we certainly could talk about more and more and more, but you get the idea. the city is trying to be responsive. One of my favorite phrases is adaptive management. We are adapting and managing, or we're managing in a way that requires that we adapt just about every day to some new requirement or some new concern that arises. And I want you to know we try to have our heads on straight about these things. I will also tell you that I'll just share about 6 bottom line points with you. 1, we're not out of the woods yet. Let's make our efforts worthwhile. Let's take advantage of this precious investment we've made in our community, the time that we've bought, the business opportunities that have been sacrificed over the last 3 weeks, plus I'm thinking the rest of this month at least. Let's really flatten that curve so that we can buy the time we need. 2, let's just agree now, and I'm maybe talking to women in the audience who might be as vain as I was raised to be, but let's just agree now that masks are not awkward, that they're not too rude, it's not too rude to wear them, or that they're not ugly, or that they're not too itchy or too prone to messing up your hair. I know they pop my earrings off. Let's just wear them as much as possible and wherever they're necessary. And I know if your conversations start sounding like this, that's okay if we sound a little muffled. They're necessary. I'll tell you when they're necessary. They're necessary whenever you can't practice 100% social distancing. City employees, as of this Friday, will be required to have masks in those situations where they cannot practice social distancing, their own masks. So point number 3, socioeconomically speaking, I am very aware of who's likely to be participating in this luncheon. You're part of clubs where you're already poised to give back. You have computers. You have the leisure time to be able to, watch the luncheon. So I feel very confident that those of you in this group can fully understand the myriad economic costs of the pandemic. Some sacrifice and loss is going to be unfathomable for some people in our community. If you're able, please tip generously for the services you receive in the coming days, weeks, and months. Pre-book your next appointment. Buy gift cards. Do whatever you can to maybe even sit down with your family if you are in this lucky position and strategize about how you can help. 4, some of our charities are most vulnerable to changes in the economy, and they need you now. If you can give to Meals on Wheels, to the Food Basket, to the United Way, who redistributes money amongst a great many charities, please do that. Now is the time. Now is the time to be generous. 5, be smart. Consume the right facts and the right data. Get your information from Eastern Idaho Public Health because they are responsible for us right here in our county. Get your information from the governor. Get your information from the Centers for Disease Control and perhaps from the World Health Organization. Be leaders on this. Help to educate those around you. Don't spread rumors. Maybe avoid politicizing this if you can help it. There will be a time for Monday morning quarterbacking all of it. But right now, when we're in the middle of trying to make smart decisions, try to not politicize it. And if you have a question that comes up, most of you know how to reach me or my office. Call us. We'll track down the rumors for you. We'll give you the right answers and right information. So, number 6, let's adapt. Let's innovate. Let's take care of each other. And most of all, let's protect the precious community investment we have already made with your help. We've got this. We've got our heads on straight, and we can do this. Thank you for listening today, and I'm very excited to be able to announce to you that next week at this luncheon forum, we'll be featuring Idaho Governor Brad Little, and I believe his topic hasn't been perfectly fleshed out. He probably doesn't know, yet that he's coming here. But I'll tell you that we're excited that his office is committed, and we're going to ask him, what are the next steps? Where does Idaho go from here? And so tune in next week for some really good information. Thank you, and have a great Wednesday.